Hey y'all, I am back with another installment on this Women's History Month. And yep, as always, I'm excited. I'm excited about our guests. And today, as we really begin to wrap up Women's History Month, I have Dara Munson, who is the president and CEO of Family Focus, who just recently merged with Chicago Child Care Society. And that is special to me because Simone, my daughter, for those of you that don't know, actually attended Chicago Child Care Society. But Dara was not, when she first started, Dara was not there. Dara and I were introduced at my favorite coffee shop, Sip and Savor. And when we were introduced, it was just like, okay, let's connect. And it was a while before we were able to connect. But when we finally had breakfast, it was like we were kindred spirits, like we were old souls together hanging out. And so that was such a wonderful, good time that ever since then, we have just been connected. We check in, make sure everybody's doing good, and it has been wonderful. So I am excited to share her with you all today. Dara, hey!
Hey, Elle, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. I'm excited to have you. You want to say hi? Simone is like standing right here in the camera, like, what's
No.
going on? Dara said hi. You just
Hi,
see a
sweetheart.
hand waving. Right. You just see a hand waving. So, Dara, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. So, first of all, I'm just so excited to spend some time with you, Elle, and your audience. I am a native Detroiter, born and raised on the west side of Detroit, and moved to Chicago about 5 years ago. I have been in the Hi, Dr. Renee. I have been in the nonprofit sector for the length of my career. I've been a fierce advocate specifically for Black and Brown children and women, and just thoroughly love what I do. I've committed my life to impacting my community in the best way that I can since I was in my early 20s. My claim to fame right now is my daughter, Taylor, who recently graduated from IU, and she is one of the most amazing, activated young Black women. I'm a little biased, but that I've ever met. She is my heart's joy, and she is unapologetically Black, and she is unapologetically her. She just allows herself to show up authentically, which I think is a beautiful thing in your early 20s, to be comfortable in that space. But she is my claim to fame, and I am here and committed to my work to make the world the right place, not a better place, but the right place for girls like Taylor and
Yes,
Simone.
I love it. I can't wait to meet Taylor. I'm so excited to meet her. Because every
Yeah.
time you talk about her, it's such a joy. And I'm very excited to meet her and see what she contributes to the world. And I thank you for committing yourself and your work to Taylor, to the Simones of the world, so that we
Mhm.
can just see these girls like grow and blossom into
Yes,
beautiful beings.
yes, absolutely.
That is wonderful. So how you liking these Chicago streets since you've
You
been
know,
here?
I love Chicago. It's only 4 hours from home, so I can hop on 94 and head east very quickly. But Chicago has been good to me. It's a beautiful place, and really similar to Detroit. It really is a tale of two cities, right? So there is
Mm.
the investment, the some disinvestment. There's the central downtown, and then the neighborhoods. And while it's a beautiful city, just like Detroit is a beautiful city, wonderful waterway, just amazing, culture and food. Um, there's so much opportunity for people of color, people who have been historically marginalized, for um, just the solidarity, I would say, really between or between and among all these communities that are not necessarily resource rich, but resourceful, right? And have the type of grit and grace and integrity and fortitude to survive. And so I see that as an opportunity for not just the nonprofit sector, but the private sector, and just the ability to create public-private partnerships in a way that I don't think we have as a country. And if there was ever a time for the type of conversation that uplifts Black and brown communities, like this is it. Like this is the time
Yes.
to get it right.
Agreed. And Dr. Renee is on here, like she is gung ho, like Detroit in the house, and in your amen corner. So I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. That is wonderful. Well, we are going to dig into the questions of the hour. And for those of you that are watching, and if you've seen one of these interviews throughout the month, you know that I ask the same questions, but we are getting so much rich information just from these 4 questions. And it's been wonderful to hear. So, Dara, first up,
Yes, ma'am.
what is an obstacle that you have been able to turn into an opportunity?
So I have to say, when I first, saw your questions, of course, Elle is not going to ask. She will ask questions that will dig deep, like straight up dig deep, first and foremost. And one of the things I appreciate about our relationship is from that very first breakfast, there was nothing but authenticity. Like there was no pomp and circumstance.
Yes.
There was no, well, what do you do and where do you live? It was none of that. It was
None of it.
very much heart to heart. So I am not surprised by this question. So I would have to say last year, and you know much of my story. Last year, 2020, really starting in January, dealt me as an individual some serious blows. I mean, from January, February, March into the pandemic, I got 3 pretty significant gut punches from life. And some of it I had to think through, and with a therapist. I have to navigate some of it. Sometimes things happen and you say, well, that's just life. The things that I had to navigate last year were not just life. They were calls to come home to myself with such intentionality that I would never have written that chapter of my life, probably ever. And so I had to really figure out how to accept what I was going through, right, and not try to fight it, but accept it in a way that forced me to look at every single layer that I brought to any of those situations, and more importantly, be acceptance of all of God's fullness in all of those situations, and use them in a way that allowed me not only to deal and cope, because some days that's all you do. Some days
Absolutely.
you literally are coping to get through the day. There were some morning I didn't want to see morning because it would be a reminder of what I was going through. Like six or 7 will come, and I did not want to see that time of day because everything comes flooding back in.
Yeah.
And so any one of the situations that I went through in the beginning of 2020 in isolation could have put me on my back.
Yeah.
But to go through them month after month and be responsible for running an organization and negotiating a merger and being in a pandemic, it was like emotional whiplash. And so I had to create the space to give myself some grace and figure out what I was supposed to learn from that. Because that was just not, it was just not a regular, there was nothing normal about that time in my life. And it forced me to start writing again, which
Yay.
about 15 years. Haven't shared anything with anybody yet, but I started writing
That's
again.
okay. You don't have to. It's for you.
It is for me. I started practicing my relationship with God, not just let me pray in the morning and let me pray before I eat and let me pray at night, but literally practicing a relationship with God, because that's the one I have to get right.
Okay, so tell us what that means though. What does practicing a relationship with God? Because I think most people think that it does mean let me pray, let me read, and I'm good. That's my practice. But what
Mhm.
let tell us a little bit more about what practicing your relationship with God actually means.
So for me, it includes prayer in the morning, prayer, blessing my food, praying at night, praying for the people and the family that I love. But it also meant really forcing myself to be silent, to hear his voice, and to understand that I would hear and I do hear his voice in so many different ways, right? It's not always although I appreciate the proverbial 4x4 on the head, like the big neon sign that just knocked me over the head with it. It's not always that distinct. Um, but I had to practice it every day. First of all, living alone in a lockdown, and social isolation is a real thing. So I had to live above those circumstances, and that is where I practiced my relationship with him. So I will just talk to him just like, I'm sitting across the table and we're just having a regular old conversation. And that's what I do with the people who I know and love who have passed on, is that kind of just a regular conversation. It's not like, let me pray to this being who has authority over my life, and if I do something wrong, it's going to be horrible. No,
Hmm.
it is understanding and being comfortable with the fact that God is in me all the time, all
Everything you do all
everything.
day. Yes.
Right. Now, when I make mistakes, then clearly that's my ego, on that path, but being comfortable that the fullness of God is in and around me 100% of the time. And so that's the intentionality that I, after going through such heartache, created an opportunity for me. And it is something that I hope and pray that I will carry with me when we start moving back into the world, because things are going to be really different.
Yeah.
And whatever, because people have learned all kinds of things. And I just pray that those things that I have learned, I will carry with me once things start moving around again, because life is going to change once we are sort of, moving around in the world.
Picking back up and
Yep.
getting back into this hustle and bustle, you want to hold on to those practices that you
Yes.
created.
Yes.
So, I mean, and you kind of answered the second question, but there may be something more to that. But you just talked about like being very intentional in the things that you're doing. And you talked about writing, right? Like that is something that I often tell people, especially if they're grieving something, grieving the loss of a job, a loved one, whatever it is. And then also, you talked about, and this is my favorite, this is what I talk about with resilience principles, is giving yourself grace. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're so hard on ourselves no matter what it is. We're always just like, I should have did more. I should have did this. I should have did it differently. And it's like, just give yourself some grace no matter what you're going through. So how are you intentionally resilient? I think I heard some of those things, but is there something else that you'd like to add to that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am a very emotional person. Like I feel all my emotions. I feel them on my skin. And there were times when I wouldn't honor that. I would, you shouldn't be sensitive and so on and so forth. Now I temper, of course, but I had to allow myself to feel every feeling that I have in order to move through it. That's one thing. The other thing is I force myself to release the energy of the day. Almost create, it's almost like a ritual before I go to bed, just to get it all
I
off.
love that.
Because
Yes.
especially when we go back into the world and we're moving around, I tend to take on the energy of the people that I'm with or situations that I navigate through, and I will bring that home with me, and that's just not healthy. So I have figured out how to make sure I'm releasing the energy of the day before I go to bed, because my goal is to have a restful night's sleep, because I have to get up and fight again in the morning. So those are some of the things that I do to be resilient. And the other thing, Elle, is leaning on the people who know and love me that I can just
Yeah.
release with. And there are certain people, and you're one of them. There are certain people who will ask how you're doing, and they are literally asking, how are you? Not, are you having a good day? And just kind of in passing. But there are certain people who check in and ask how you're doing, who actually really care. And
Yeah.
so you have to be warm and open to that, because sometimes you need to say how you're doing, and sometimes it's, I'm horrible, I'm not good
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with not being good today. I'll get there, but right now I'm not good.
Right.
And I think part of building sort of your resiliency toolkit is knowing which of those things you need to tap into depending on the situation. And oftentimes it's the human connection that allow you to process some of those feelings and issues.
Absolutely. And it's so funny. And I'm very intentional about asking people how they are. If I'm not in a space to care, I don't ask.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, because no, seriously, I remember I went to Creighton University for undergrad in Omaha, Nebraska, and one of my social work professors was Native American, and he says, "You Americans ask," wait, and he's like, "You Americans." I was like, "Oh, whoa, wait, what?"
Right.
But he's like, from a cultural standpoint, Native Americans do not ask how you're doing. You know how we're in passing, just like, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, girl, what's
Mhm.
going on?" He said Native Americans don't do that. He said because when a Native American person, and that's what they're rooted in, when they're asking you how you are doing, that means they are going to do something to assist or help you if you
Mm.
are not doing well. He was like, we're so blasé and lazy with it that we
Mhm.
just go on about, our day. And that has stuck with me over the years. And I'm not always so good, but I try to hold on to that and be like, wait a minute, hold on.
Mhm.
Do I really care how this person
Right.
is?
Right. Because if they're truthful and it's not good, then you own some of that. Like you own some of whatever it is they're dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I can't help them, I need to be like, oh, my bad. I'm
Mhm.
like, I,
Mhm.
I can't help you right now in this moment, but we'll figure that out. All right. So I know that you are surrounded by amazing women. And I'm sure this is difficult for you to pick just one, but who is a woman that you admire and why? We are talking about Women's History Month. Who is one of those women in your life?
Ooh, it is hard to pick one. It's hard and then it's not, because this question, when I get this question, and really what I think of when I think about what it means to be resilient and how to honor that in us, as specifically as Black women, I have to say my grandmother, Bernice Chambers. And she's passed on. She would have been 100 years old this year, this past February. And the reason I love her. She just embodies everything that is strong and peaceful. So the duality of those two things, she has it. And I say has because I always feel her with me. But she got her GED at the age of 73. And so education is really
What?
important. She went to school until fourth grade, married my grandfather very young, had 5 children in Chester, Pennsylvania. He passed away at 35. She was a domestic
Mm.
worker and raised 5 children, to, my mother being one of them, to just do great things, and had a very full life and a full family. And she wanted to go back to school in her early 70s, and she got her
At
GED
70, that is
at
amazing.
73. And we celebrated her as if she got it when she was 18.
You're supposed to. If she's 73 going to get her GED, like, let's go, grandma. Let's
Yes,
go.
absolutely. And so although she did not have a traditional education, she taught us so much about determination and perseverance and being strong. And that being strong does not necessarily mean you're the loudest or you're the most verbose.
Yeah.
Her symbol or her explanation to us, or really exhibition, because she didn't even have to talk about it, of being strong, came in all those years of raising her family, raising her grandchildren, let me in the door when I decided to skip school in fourth grade, and I'm going to skip school and go to grandma's house. And she was like, really, come on, let me give you some lemonade and take you right back to school. But she carried that beautiful strength with her until the day she died. And she had long silver hair, and it was just beautiful. And we would just sit on the back of the couch and braid it up and put it in a big braid on top of her head. What we now call a messy bun, but it was really like a real bun. So she is the person that I admire most, and it is her perseverance that gets me.
I love that. 73 getting her GED. That is, when you talk about Women's History Month, that is a story for you. That is a story to tell. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
I absolutely love that. All right. Last but not least, it's the fun side of things. We're adding this to the playlist. What is your women's empowerment song? What is your go-to that gets you moving and grooving?
My go-to, and I'm going to have to play it when we hang up from this call. Beyonce, Who Run the World.
Oh!
I mean, what a better song for Women's History Month.
Absolutely. So this is the second Beyonce song we have. So we got a different one on the playlist, but Beyonce got a little bit of love this month.
I love it. I can't wait to hear the playlist.
It's going to be so hot. We have like old school, we got new school. It's going to be a feel good. Everybody, all y'all going to be playing the playlist talking about, hey, it's the Women's History Month playlist.
I love it. It's versatile, just like we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dara, this has been lovely. These have been so much fun. I have learned so much about different women that have been forces throughout my life. And so I just want to thank you again for spending some time with me.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would like to add or you would like to share before we close out?
Really, just that my hope and prayer is that the positivity, even though we're navigating some really dark days, I'm also seeing a lot of positivity and light, and that we as a society decide to lean into it, because it's just a decision. It's just one decision away. And thank you for being who you are and for showing up as who you are and for creating the space for other women to do the same this month. It's a beautiful thing. And maybe in the summertime, we'll all get together safely, socially distanced, safely.
Listen, one of the women last week was already like, where's our resilience party? We haven't our women's.
I'm there.
She's like, we're having our Women's History Month party. And I don't know. So just as a quick preview, and I'll say this, Dara, while you are here, this has been so much fun. And I personally have gotten so much out of it. I'm continuing a few different series on, and we'll see how this goes.
Okay.
But, so I'll unveil everything probably Thursday in terms of what will happen throughout the month of April, May, and June. And then I'll have to take a break because
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
But they have been so much fun. And there are some just, I want to be able to share people that have impacted me with others and just let's share this goodness, just like you just talked about. Like, let's share this positivity and goodness and let's keep sharing it throughout. So thank you. I appreciate you, my dear.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have been invited. Thank you for this. It's been amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So wherever you are watching, thank you for tuning in. This has just been a dose of Women's History Month where we are highlighting absolutely amazing women that I know personally. And I'm so excited to say that. I'm like, yes, I know these ladies. And tune in. Tomorrow is the last day, and I'm hoping that we have a special surprise, but we'll see because I don't know, anything can happen. Anything is liable. So have a good night. See you, everyone.